In this week's article, John writes about whether it's better to buy your own encoding gear or pay a cloud service for live streaming. He reviews 2 articles on the subject and then performs a financial comparison that shows that producing 24/7, 365 live streams via a cloud service is insanely more expensive than owning your own gear. Hi, John. I have a question for you.
Shoot.
What hit me in the cloud on-premise article is basically that by choosing the cloud, you almost self-categorize yourself as business with no growth, no future. The numbers that you are presenting seem so far apart that it almost looks scary.
I think if you're going to choose the cloud, you need to run the numbers. I mean, anybody who's ever rented a cloud instance, you see the 30 cents an hour or the buck an hour, and you always wonder, well, gosh, if I ran that out over the course of a year or 5 years, what would it look like as compared to buying the computer? And the numbers are startling, particularly when so we're not only looking at running in the cloud here, we're running a service in the cloud. So I compared buying a server and running it on premise with running live operations through AWS Media Live. And, so not only are you paying for the service, Media Live, you're also paying for the cloud instances beneath that. And what's really insane is that, AWS owns Media Live. So it's remarkable that that's the highest cost service out there, even though they own the machines. So I don't want to say that you're limiting your growth. I'm saying that you're certainly missing an opportunity to do some encoding that's much more profitable than if you own the equipment than if you do it in the cloud.
There is this perception that running equipment on-premise is very complex, yet not that far back, everyone was doing just that. So are we simply too lazy that we rather sacrifice huge part of the revenue in exchange for this promised comfort?
So the article that we're talking about it's got 3 parts. One is a summary of an article by a guy named Hansen, who runs software as a service operations in the cloud. One is a gentleman from Telestream who's in charge of their cloud operation, and the third is the cloud analysis. And what Hansen says is, the cloud's not as easy as you think it is, and he's never seen an operation that was able to let people go just because they went into the cloud. You're not going to be able to streamline your operations and lose headcount because you're taking it into the cloud, even though your costs are going to be much more. And he's the guy who points out, hey, before 2010, we did this all on the premise anyway, and what's the big deal with doing it now on premise?
What about the hybrid approach? Based on this article, it seems like this is like a safe solution with door open both ways. You can aim for the growth and soften the landing if not everything goes according to the envisioned dreams.
That's what the gentleman from Telestream talks about. He says, and this is kind of one of the major points in the article, is you're going to have day-to-day type encoding, and then you're going to have spike encoding. And the gentleman from Telestream says, buy your own gear for the stable day-to-day encoding, and make sure you have a hybrid platform. So if you have spikes in demand, you can easily take that demand to the cloud and get it processed there. So I think you can have the best of both worlds, but if you're encoding your day-to-day operations using a cloud service, the numbers are just crazy as that being unprofitable.
You encourage everyone do the math, but I'm looking at the numbers and they seem so far apart, cloud versus on-premise. I wonder if you could explain the calculations you made to arrive to this final conclusion. I would imagine that everyone who is planning to use the cloud is going through the same or similar decision-making process. So how to compare?
I think they should go through that analysis. Now, what we did in this analysis is I just went to the AWS Media Live, which is a live streaming service, and I determined the cost for 24/7 operation for both HEVC and H.264. So that's point one, and that's, Media Live has a calculator, they've got pricing, and I was able to make sure that, the calculator equaled the pricing that I calculated. So I'm pretty sure that those calculations are correct. In comparison to that, we looked at the new streaming media server from NETINT, which is a $7,000 unit that's got 10 T408 cards and can produce 20, I believe the numbers are like 21 or 22 H.264 fiber-ring ladders and 27 HEVC 4-rung ladders. And then I compared the cost of running that in the cloud. So you buy the hardware for $7, and then you co-locate it for 5 years. And that was around $11,000. And then I multiplied the per year cost for each encoding ladder with AWS Media Live. And for H.264, for the same 21 or 22 ladders, it was like $400,000. And for HEVC, I think it was $1.8 million for the same 27 ladders. Now, the conclusion I came to is that you'd have to be nuts to run 24/7 operation with Media Live. And I'm guessing it's used primarily for, high value 1 or 2 hour presentations or 1 or 2 hour videos that occur, Super Bowl type applications. But, that was just the financial comparison that I did. We have another white paper out there that you're familiar with where we looked at not using Media Live, but running H.264 or X.264 software instances in the cloud. And the numbers are closer, but it's still amazing how much of a premium you get or AWS gets for encoding your content in the cloud.